Good evening, everybody. I will now call this meeting of the Derry School Board to order. Please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will start with the roll call. If everyone could introduce themselves, name and position, starting from my right.
Jane Samard, Business Administrator.
Kim Conant, Director of Curriculum and Grants.
Joe Crawford, Assistant Superintendent.
Austin Garofalo, Superintendent.
Michael Thiel, School Board Chair.
Jen Thoreau, School Board Vice Chair.
Jamie Carew, School Board.
Jenna Paradise, Secretary.
Karen Rand, School Board.
Jason McLeod, School Board.
Anthony Henry, Pinkerton Academy Representative.
All right, tonight's first item will be the consent agenda. For approval tonight, we have the non-public meeting minutes of May 27th, 2025, the public meeting minutes of May 27th, 2025, the public workshop minutes of May 29th, 2025, approval of the manifest in the amount of $4,186,122.76, of which $2,868,903.14 is general payroll and $1,317,219.62 is general expense. Approval of the following nominations: Heather Bartlett, Speech and Language Pathologist, District in Deep; Sarah Boscheman, School Nurse, West Running Brook Intermediate School; Lexis Bowles, Kindergarten Teacher, South Range Elementary School; Cheryl Clark, Speech and Language Pathologist, District and Deep; Matthew Daniels, Science Teacher, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School; Suzanne Johnson, Special Education Teacher, Ernest P. Barca Elementary School; Delaney Kearns, Math Teacher, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School; Michelle Martineau, Special Education Teacher, Child Find Coordinator and LEA; Kelsey Woodard, Math Teacher, Gilbert H. Hood Middle School. And approval of the following resignation: Angela Barber, Science Specialist, District. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
First by Jen, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
I'll take Brenda's spot to say thank you for your service for all of those who are retiring.
All right. We have no appointment presentations tonight, so we will move to delegations and individuals. At this time, residents of Derry, parents of currently enrolled Derry students, and employees of the district may address the school board on matters that pertain only to school and district business for a period of time not to exceed 3 minutes per person. As a reminder, questions cannot be answered in real time. If you would like to speak, please come up to the microphone at this time and state your name and address for the record.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Richard Dietrich. I've been a resident of Derry since 1988. Put all my kids, my 2 kids, my adopted daughter, and then my 3 stepchildren through all the Pinkerton schools. I've been Austin Garf.
We will need you to state your
Derry
address
school, excuse me. Yeah.
Your address, too. You need to state
Oh,
your
yeah,
name and
16
address.
Alyssa Drive, Derry, New Hampshire.
Thank you.
So, and I've been all over this town. I worked for Parkland for 26 years, and I bought the Derry Diner, and that's actually why I'm here. Is when I sold the diner, broke my heart, I retired, but I distributed a lot of equipment throughout southern New Hampshire for charities as well as for the school here as well. And I just want to give a synopsis of what I've been asking for and just want to know where we stand. I know Derry Village School is shut down. I know the marketplace for used equipment just isn't there. And I'm also a Knight of Columbus at St. Thomas Aquinas, and they're in desperate need of an oven and a couple of pieces of equipment and a steam table and so forth. I did send forth an email, and I just wanted to get a vibe as to what my next move is before I go shopping around for equipment they may need. And I've been talking to Jane, so if you can work on that, give me some feedback. If you have a synopsis information, that'd be great to hear from it. Okay.
Yep. We can't really answer questions during the delegations and individuals period, but we can certainly make sure someone from the district.
I would just need sort of
gets
like
in
a
touch with you.
timeline so I can get back to the church. Okay? Thanks.
All right, thank you. All right, seeing no one else come up to the microphone, we will move on with the meeting. However, the public comment period will remain open until 7:09 PM. If you wish to speak prior to that time, approach the microphone and wait to be recognized. All right, next up will be our student member updates. So, Mr. Henry, you're up with your Pinkerton Academy update.
Not much to say. This is the last week. Today was the last day of classes, and the rest of this week, plus Monday and Tuesday, are finals. Graduation is this Friday, 6 o'clock if you want to go, at Pinkerton, at the football field. That's all I have. That's the end of the year.
All right, thanks, Anthony. I think at least a few of us will be there, and good luck on your finals.
Thank you.
Anthony, congratulations are in order. 3rd year in a row. I know that is a record. I don't know if there's been 2 in a row, but you definitely have the record at 3 in a row. You were voted in by your the student body once again to be the liaison for next year. So we wanted to announce that. I got a email from Assistant Head of School, Michael Perez, informing us of that. So we want to thank you for your time that you've had with us so far and look forward to having you here once again next year, and congratulations.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Austin. We'll move on to deliberations. We have one item to deliberate tonight. Jane has a few authorizations and approvals we need to execute as part of the bond process. So, Jane, did you want to explain what it is we are being asked to vote on tonight?
Sure. There are several documents, 4 documents that we've included in your board packet relative to the bond that was approved for capital improvement. These have to be presented to the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank and Bond Council by the 16th. One of them is a set of resolutions that I believe Michael is going to read. There's also information related to post-issuance and tax compliance, and also information on the loan agreement. And in the loan agreement, you probably saw that you saw an interest rate of, I believe it was 4.75. It was a not to exceed, because we're not sure what the rate is, but it would be no higher. And we will actually be looking to, Bond Council has arbitrage consultants that we are probably going to look to contract with that help manage your post-issuance tax information, and I'll bring that forward to the board when I get more information on options of who can do that. But I think that Michael will read the issuances and make motions, and that there will be votes required for all of these. And these are all the policy and procedures. Those are all drafted, all these documents are drafted by Bond Council. They're standard for all of their municipal bonds, and the policies and procedures are also, none of that was modified or revised by us, changing language or anything. They drafted them specifically for Derry.
All right, so I trust everyone has had a chance to look over these documents. Did anyone have any questions about them? All right, not hearing any. The first document we will address will be the post-issuance tax compliance policies and procedures. So for one of the items, we're being asked to nominate a compliance coordinator, which I'm told is typically the business administrator who is nominated as the coordinator. So Jane, you would accept that nomination?
I would.
All right, so if there's no further discussion, I'll go ahead with the motions. So first, I will take a motion to approve the post-issuance tax compliance policies and procedures attached hereto as Exhibit A.
So moved.
First by Jason,
Second.
second by Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. I will take a motion to hereby name the business administrator as the coordinator under the post-issuance tax compliance policies and procedures, the business administrator having accepted such nomination.
So moved.
Second.
First by Jen, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. I will take a motion that this resolution shall take effect from and after its adoption.
So moved.
First by Jason,
Second.
second by Jen. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. All right, the second document we will address will be the authorization of bonds and approval of loan agreement with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank. So what I will do here is I'm going to read 7 resolutions into the record, and then I will ask for one motion to approve the 7 resolutions. So, resolved that under and pursuant to the Municipal Finance Act, Chapter 33, NHRSA, as amended, the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank Law, Chapter 35A, NHRSA, as amended, and other laws in addition thereto, and to votes of the issuer duly adopted on March 11th, 2025, under Article 2 of the warrant, for such annual meeting of the issuer there be, and hereby is authorized the issuance of a $24,601,951 bond of the issuer, to be known as the bond, which is being issued by the issuer for the purpose of financing school facility capital maintenance improvements, including but not limited to roofs, building facades, HVAC, and doors, windows. The bond shall be dated as of its date of issuance, shall be in such numbers and denominations as the purchaser shall request, shall mature in accordance with the schedule set forth in Exhibit A to a certain loan agreement hereinafter described, the loan agreement, shall bear a net interest cost rate as defined in the loan agreement of 4 3/4% per annum or such lesser amount as may be determined by a majority of the board. The bond shall be substantially in the form set forth as Exhibit B to the loan agreement and otherwise shall be issued in such manner and form as the signatories shall approve by their execution thereof. Resolved, that the bond shall be sold to the bond bank at the par value thereof plus any applicable premium. Resolved that in order to evidence the sale of the bond, the treasurer of issuer and a member of the board are authorized to directed to execute, attest, and deliver in the name and on behalf of the issuer a loan agreement in substantially the form submitted to this meeting, which is hereby approved, with such changes therein not inconsistent with this vote and approved by the officers executing the same on behalf of the issuer. The approval of such changes by said officers shall be conclusively evidenced by the execution of the loan agreement by such officers. Resolved that all things heretofore done and all action heretofore taken by the issuer and its officers and agents in its authorization of the project to be financed by the bond are hereby ratified, approved, and confirmed. Resolved that the clerk and the signers of the bond are each hereby authorized to take any and all action necessary and convenient to carry out the provisions of this vote, including delivering the bond against payment therefor. Resolved that the issuer has no seal. Resolved that the useful life of the project being financed is in excess of 15 years. I further certify that said meeting was open to the public, that aforesaid vote was not taken by secret ballot nor in executive session, that notice of the time and place of said meeting was posted in at least 2 appropriate public places within the territorial limits of the issuer, or published in a newspaper of general circulation in said area at least 24 hours, excluding Sundays and legal holidays, before said meeting, that no deliberations or actions with respect to the vote were taken in executive session, and that the minutes of said meeting have been promptly recorded and have been or will be made open to inspection not more than 5 days after the meeting, all in accordance with Chapter 91A, NHRSA, as amended. So now I will take a motion to adopt the 7 resolutions from the authorization of bonds and approval of loan agreement with the New Hampshire Municipal Bond Bank document as read into the record, and to authorize the Derry School District Clerk to sign the certificate of vote as clerk of the issuer.
So moved.
Second.
First by Jen, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0.
Of the documents, we had to do 4 copies of each of these documents that require signatures. Signatures are school district clerk, treasurer, board chair, and there is one document that requires the board member signatures. So if you could just wait after the meeting so that I can make sure that you sign that document. And the treasurer is coming in the office tomorrow, and the documents will be going over to the town hall for Tina to sign tomorrow as well. And so these will all get up to Municipal Bond Bank later this week. Thank you.
Jane.
All right, thank you, Jane. We'll move on to administration reports, of which we have a number of them tonight. So first up is going to be Ms. Conant with a presentation on assessment data.
Ready? I wanted to come down here because it's easier. All right, so I'm so excited for tonight because this is my favorite thing, is talking about the data. So we're going to talk tonight about student growth and achievement in math, literacy, and science. So we're going to focus on three things. We're going to focus on the fall to spring growth and achievement in the NEWA MAP assessment that we take. We're going to focus on the SAS, which is the state achievement data, and then our next steps for instruction and support. So just a reminder that the NEWA MAP growth assessment is an adaptive assessment. So, and we take that 3 times a year. So that means that if you get a question right, it goes to the next level. If it's a question wrong, it goes down to another level. So it's adaptive. It measures the growth over time. It compares student growth nationally, and it helps inform our instruction and our interventions. So just what it looks like, we're looking at 2 things when we look at NEWA. We look at the growth percentile, and we also look at the achievement percentile. So the growth percentile is, it compares a student's growth over time so that we can see how they're doing throughout their whole time in school. So think about it as a trajectory of progress. How well are they improving each year? The achievement percentile, that indicates a student's performance compared to the national norms. So think of that as like a snapshot of the performance. Where are they right now in their learning? So this slide is, this next 2 slides are going to be a little bit small, but I'm going to explain it in the next one. So this is what we look at. This is math. This is the NEWA math achievement. So at the top, you'll see the growth percentile is at the top, and then for the district, and then the achievement of those 2 bars, fall and spring. So as a district, we are at, I can't even see, let's see, what are we? Hold on. Okay, we're at 62%, I can't read it. So we're at the 62nd level for growth, which is really good. That's above the average. Then we have from fall, we went from 47th percentile to 55th percentile overall in math. Now, as you see the breakdown of the grades, so grade 1, 2, 3, 4 are here. So we have a huge growth grade level, so 64th percent, 75th percent, 82nd percent, and 46%. So that is our growth. And then you'll see our achievement underneath. So you'll see it went from, from 4th grade, it went from 48th to 59th. So let's do the second slide. This is 5th grade through 8th grade. Same exact thing. So you see that their growth is at the top, and then their achievement percentiles from fall to spring. Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's okay.
So here I broke it down so that we can have it a little bit better. So all grades in math are at the 55th percentile, which is above the national average. The national average for math is 50%. So we see on the side, you'll see the grade, then you'll see the median percentile, which is their percentile of growth. Then you'll see I broke it out into low, medium, and high. Those are the percentages of the kids who scored in the low 1 to 40th percentile, 41st to 60th percentile, 61st to 100. And then the average RIT score. That's a RIT score is the unit of level that they get compared to the national average. It compares to, you explain this a little bit better than me.
So the RIT scale is it's an equal interval scale that allows us to track growth, student instructional growth, regardless of age or grade level. So if 2 students scored a 162, that would mean that they are at the same instructional grade level regardless of age. So in this case, kindergarten, their average RIT was 162. So that means among our kindergarten group, the average of the median, or I assume that's probably the mean, it was 162. It's just an equal interval scale because not all scales are equal intervals. So if you think of it like a ladder, each rung is the same distance from the rung above or below it.
Thank you. So as my keynotes over here, so kindergarten, we have a really strong cohort. 72nd percentile is very strong, which tells me that they're really indicating good foundational skills in math. First grade, very strong in early numeracy skills as we break it down. The other one, the most eye-opening was fifth grade. That's the most at risk right now. Sixth grade, we're recovering slightly. Seventh grade, we're a little bit below the average, and eighth grade, we're trending back upward in math. The next slide here is math growth. So this is the diamond represents the grade level norm that was projected based off of their RIT score in the fall. So as a grade level, this is where they were projected to make growth. The bar is where how much they observed growth. So as you can see, we are observing growth over what their projected is. Okay. So in math, for the takeaways for our district, kindergarten, like I said before, is a standout. 62% of the students are above the 60th percentile. So that indicates to me that we have strong foundational skills happening. Grades 1 through 4, they are consistently above the national average, with high performing groups making up nearly half of each class. Grade 8 is showing a recovery, pulling above the national average again. So that's good because we're showing recovery. Okay. So this is literacy now. So same exact thing as math. So we have the growth at the top. That's our district growth at the top, and then the achievement underneath. So we have 49th percentile for growth, and then we have from 53rd percentile to 55th. And we're actually at 55th percentile because kindergarten doesn't take this assessment in the fall, so there's no fall to spring. But from winter to spring, that's added in, so we're at 55th percentile for achievement, which is interesting because this year, first time, we're both 55th percentile in math and 55th percentile in reading, which is interesting for achievement. So again, this is grades 1 through 4 with high achievement. Second grade went from 38th percentile in achievement to 56th percentile, which is outstanding. And then this again is 5th grade through 8th grade. So the next page is at all grades, 55th percentile. We're slightly above the national average for that, for literacy. So similar, we have the grade level, the median percentile. I did the bottom 40th percentile and the top 40th percentile in this one with your average range and my notes. So the kindergarten, again, high performing cohort in kindergarten, just like math. First grade, above average in literacy. They were strong in foundational skills in numeracy and math. Second grade, we have a really strong distribution. And then again, fourth grade is one of our strongest grade levels, and I'll explain that in a minute. We have fifth grade. We have room to grow at the top level because as you can see in the top level in fifth grade is 41% and the bottom is 33%. So if we move those kids up to the top level, we will move them out of that bottom band. And then sixth grade, seventh grade and eighth grade, they're pretty flat. So again, in language arts, here is the diamonds are where they were projected to grow as a grade level, and that is what was observed for grade level growth. So in NEWA map literacy for the district, grade 2 closed a substantial gap from 38th percentile in the fall to 56th percentile in achievement in the spring. 36% of their kids are above the 80th percentile, so that's a strong indicator that we have top tier performance. Grade 4 increased their proportion of students in the 61st to the 80th percentile and above 80th percentile. Which is really great because that means that we're moving from the low brackets all the way up, and that's what we want to see. We want to see that shift. Grades 5 through 8, they stayed around 52nd to 55th percentile in achievement, but they showed general lower growth, but we're still holding strong in the achievement. This is our NEWA Reading Fluency Assessment. This assessment is based off of, it's a screener, and it is new to us this year. It is based off of the dyslexic law. So every kid, the law says that every child from K to 2nd grade needs to have a screener to screen for dyslexia. So we, as a district, have been doing it kindergarten through 4th grade because we are lower in our data, has been lower in foundational skills, which is the bottom. So as you can see, this graph may be a little confusing. The foundational skills should be up in the fall. But as you can see, the purple, they should be decreased in the spring because you want the foundational skills to really work and progress monitor, and you want to see that decrease. You want to see those kids that were in the foundational skills to move more to the oral reading fluency because the foundational skills are more of the phonemic awareness, the initial sound fluency, the ending, the medial vowels. So they are really specific, and then as it goes through, you want the children to be able to put that together into oral reading fluency so that they can have a good oral reading rate. So that's why you'll see that the oral reading fluency is lower in the fall, higher in the spring. However, I still would like to see the oral reading fluency higher in the spring. So we still have work to do, and according to myself and my team. This is grades 3 through 4. So as you can see, the foundational skills, we still have work. The foundational skills should be a lot lower at this time, but 3 through 4 have not had the UFly phonics program that we put in place 2 years ago. So that's why you'll see this. And it'll start to trend higher as we move up from kindergarten to 2nd grade. Thanks. So next piece is understanding our SAS. So that is our state assessment. Thank you. No. So this is administered annually, grades 3 through 8. So this measures our proficiency aligned with the New Hampshire state standards. It's used to assess achievement but not growth. Scores are categorized by below, approaching, proficient, and advanced. So in this, I have done this in a cohort. So all of the colors are cohort. So if you start at blue, that was when they were in 3rd grade, and so on 4th grade. And so I did it so that it was clear so you could see. So our math, as you can see, our data is going down. And we have recognized certain areas that are strong and certain areas that we need to focus on. So some of the areas that we are strong in this year is numbers and operations and algebraic thinking, and mathematical reasoning. They're all strong in grades 3 through 6. Modeling and problem solving are the strong areas 7 through 8. In literacy, the same thing, I did it as a cohort. So as you can see, again, our data is going down in SAS. Some of it is going up. It's up and down. More so up in literacy than in math. But our informational text is really a strength for grades 3 through 8 this year, which was nice to see because in both SAS data, math, and literacy, the areas that were stronger in SAS are the same areas that are strong in NEWA. That was nice to see. The next one is our SAS achievement data for science. So again, those colors are the cohorts. It may look, this one's a little hard to read. It looks like we went down, but our state averages change on science, math, and reading too. But every time that, we're lower in math, we're lower in science. Every time that we're a little bit higher in math, we're higher in science. So it really goes along with it. But our areas of strength are earth and space science and then physical science. So some of our celebrations is that math, we had 63% of our students made their projected growth, which is outstanding. And literacy, 52% of those students met their projected growth, which is, again, above the average. I really have to celebrate the teachers and the students this year. They have worked incredibly hard. I gave them a lot of new curriculum at the start of the year, and they worked really hard, and you can see that through this growth, the growth data across all grade levels. Their dedication was truly something. So really the impacts that we have on that focused learning and persistence and shared commitment to the learning, it's all evident through our data, and it's really paving our way towards that vision, our learning vision for our district. So some of our next steps. So through the fluency NEWA data, we have to continue to explicitly teach phonics instruction. We do that through UFly, so that's K to 2. We have to continue to do curriculum and instruction alignment in grades 5 through 8. This year we focused on K to 4 alignment, and so we're really focused on 5 through 8 the following year, next year. We need to provide targeted professional development on Tier 1 reading instruction and data-driven grouping for our focus block. So really turning that 25-minute focus block into what are the needs of the students and making that a differentiated block. So intervention and enrichment for all kids. We have to look at the students in the bottom growth quintile, because I need to do a deeper analysis on what that Tier 2 needs to look like for support, because I really want to move that bottom 2 categories to the average or above average. And it's similar percentiles for both literacy and math, so I really need to dive a little deeper into looking at that. And then we really need to do data-driven team conversations. So we have to use that grade and content level data in collaborative teams to discuss instructional moves, student supports, progress monitoring tools that align with the success patterns seen in the common assessments. And part of that, like this Friday, we are having teams talk about where they ended in the year on their curriculum, where they're going. We're having them do vertical teams so that they can start to talk about this data and move kids along for next year. And questions? That was a lot, but.
Thank you. It's nice to see all the data pulled together.
Is your mic on?
Is my mic on?
Yeah, there you go.
Can you hear it? I'm not close enough. Thank you. Appreciate all of the information in the presentation. Good to see everything compiled. You noted against the national. I'd be curious, and you don't have to share it today, but just curious how we compare to the rest of the state versus national. And then this is for both math and literacy. It seems like 5th grade is kind of a big pain point there, so I'd be curious to understand what your thoughts are on both sides of that coin, why 5th grade seems to be the biggest challenge with regards to growth. And then math for the 7th grade level,
So just be curious to hear, A, what your thoughts are, and then maybe what some actions or steps specifically around addressing what at least seems to be a pretty big need at the 5th grade level.
Sure. So the state, I can do the state levels in the fall because the state averages haven't come out, so I can't have any access to like SAS assessments until the fall. So our surrounding towns, but I will put that together for everyone in the fall to show our sending towns to Pickerton and also where our state line is so that you can see how we compare. And so 5th grade is a big one. So number one, 5th grade, if you look at our trending data from, years past, it's always like when we had elementary K to 5, and then we had 6th grade, 7th and 8th. It always went from 5th grade, and then we dipped to 6th grade. And I was wondering that as I was looking at the 5th grade data, I was wondering the same thing. So this year, what I figured, and there's a lot of factors to 5th grade, but this is one of them, is that they go from having 60-minute math blocks in elementary and having 25-minute focus blocks. So in a week, that's 485 minutes or something. But in 5th grade, or in the past 6th grade, they have 50-minute content blocks. So they reduce their time, and then they have a 20-minute intervention. This year, the intervention at West, the focus block, got cut a little bit more because of the start of school. It kind of cut into it. So the lack of minutes. So we went from like 485 minutes to 230 minutes, say, which is half the time. So that's number one. Number two is 5th grade. They were a mix. Some teachers were there, and taught 5th grade. Some were teaching 6th. So I think the new school, they had to figure out the teams. The kids had to get adjusted. So I think that that also could play into a factor. And plus, I started the new curriculum maps with the 5th grade this year that, we had to adjust along the way a little bit because they weren't quite there. Plus, this 5th grade class is part of that pandemic. They were in kindergarten, so some of their skills are still growing. They don't have as much fluency and numeracy that we would like, that we really put into place in 4th grade this year. So I think that next year they'll continue to grow. So we are on the 5th grade issue. I've been meeting with the task force team for math, and we have a really good solid plan going into next year and how we're going to use that focus block to help that. Same thing with literacy. So literacy, you asked about literacy, right? Mm-hmm. So literacy for 5th grade and 6th grade, like I said, Science of Reading took over, and so Science of Reading is more of a complex text. It's more of a novel-based versus a small group read at your level. Because you want the 5th grade through 8th grade to have a high, complex, rich conversation so that they're thinking above their complexity level. And so right now, 5th and 6th grade, we were sort of doing the old model because we hadn't changed that. We met as a ELA task force team, and we have come up. We are now adopting a program called Open Up. It is a research-based, evidence-based program, high on the data that it trends up, and it includes reading, speaking and listening, and writing, and it will include also the knowledge and skills. That's one area in 5th grade that they were lower on. So the knowledge and skills section is when you take a piece of literature, but you can also take pieces of nonfiction and you intertwine them at the same time. Right now they're doing, literature and then nonfiction units, so it's not intertwining, and so that will help the development of vocabulary and their knowledge and skills. So that is something that we're adopting for next year, and there are all different units. We got all the novels, and the teachers are working with me 4 days this summer. Also, Dennis Mayo, my secondary coordinator, has done a lot of work in researching the program and doing this program. So we are excited for that, and the teachers are excited and on board. So we have a plan for 5th and 6th grade, and also 7th and 8th is adopting that too.
Thanks, Kim. Real quick, last follow-up, and I'll pass it over. But so it seems like there's a rebound in 6th grade, and then there's a rebound again from 7th to 8th. Is it possible to maybe, and listen, I'm sure I can work through the committee process and with your team, but how do you try to mitigate some of the sharp decline to then have such a healthy bounce back? Are you able to sort of, I don't want to say flatline, it's not the right term, but normalize it so
Yes.
it's not as such a sharp from 4 to 5, boom, it's a drop, and then 5 to 6 it goes back up, and then 6 to 7 it, so
Yes.
you're jumping up and down.
You
Is
have
it-
a heartbeat.
Yeah.
Yes, I always say I don't like heartbeat data. So there was a heartbeat data only because yes, it goes up and down. So what I discovered through my data dive is that the skills are not mastered. So what's happening is teachers are teaching a unit, like I had said, and then they get really good, but then it doesn't spiral back, and so they have to hold on to it a lot longer. So you see them having a heart, like the students will do really great. Like say in the spring, kids always did great in geometry because that's what we were focused on. But then all the others like data statistics and all the other competencies went down. So now the way that I rewrote the math curriculum, and it's, I only have 7th and 8th grade left, but K to 4, we really started with solid foundational skills. As you can see in the data, kindergarten and 1st grade are solid. We went back to conceptual understanding versus just starting with algorithm. And the kids understand that a lot better. So what we saw, usually in the NIWA data, you would see a fall score that is lower, then you would see a high winter score, and then you would see a lower spring score. This year, we didn't see that. We saw a fall to a winter to a spring, and so it's gradually going. So as we continue to do this program and we continue to do the standards, I think that we'll start to level off.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions for?
Yeah. Sorry, this thing on? Thank you, Kim. I appreciate that. So full disclosure, I sit on the curriculum committee, so this is my second time hearing Kim's presentation. I appreciate it, Kim. Very good second time around just as well. To me, I walked away from that meeting excited because I felt like this was a lot of very positive data for our district, particularly regarding the NIWA. And that's a testament to the work that's being done in our schools this year. So I want to thank our teachers, our paraprofessionals, our support staff that are doing the work every day in the classroom. I was wondering, I did have a couple questions. I was wondering if the positive trends that you're seeing, particularly at the K to 4 level, if those are consistent across the elementary schools, and if they're not, what might we attribute those differences school to school to?
Yes and no. So yes, they are across the 4 elementary schools, but there are definitely pockets that I've identified in schools that I've identified that we need more work on. And so I will be meeting with the principals one-on-one to discuss the data and develop an action plan for how that will continue next year. I also think that, the way that I rolled out curriculum this year isn't ideal. I didn't have enough time to actually give it to them in a timely manner and adjust based on everything that was happening. So it was sort of a rip the Band-Aid and move forward kind of curriculum. And so I do think that as we roll out the maps this year, a lot of teachers got comfortable with it and some teachers didn't, but then next year, every single teacher will be doing the curriculum maps put out. So it was sort of a year of transition for all. So.
Thank you. And then I was wondering too, if you could explain how our district's investment into curriculum, either through programming that's in the budget or professional development opportunities for our teachers. How do we see teacher instruction improve with that investment, and resultantly the difference we see in achievement scores in our district? Like, to me, I'm making a connection there because it sounds like you've been making some alignment, particularly on the K-4 side. So could you speak a little bit more about that?
Sure. So we've been doing a lot of professional development K-8. It's just the K-4, we really rolled out the new curriculum maps, and so that is why you're seeing K-4. But really K-8, we've all the teachers that have gone to OGAP is called the Ongoing Assessment Project. It is a math 4-day intensive course, and it's 4 different areas. And I have had 72 teachers go to this in the summer voluntarily to take this course. And I've even had principals go. And it is a framework so that when they go to OGAP, you can see the direct understanding of OGAP and what they're teaching in their classroom. And they also share that out with their teammates. We've also done responsive classroom. I've had, so many people go to responsive classroom, again, in the summertime. The teachers are so dedicated, and you do see the responsive classroom is more of the social emotional and cares and, morning meetings. So that you can see directly affects student achievement there because they're, building that community, they're asking those questions, they're, having cooperation and all those things. The literacy, we've had 171 teachers, I believe, 72, yes, thank you. 172 teachers go to the letters training. Again, an intensive 2-year process that people have taken the time to do hours and hours, and that really focused on a systematic, explicit phonics instruction, and then that goes into the comprehension and vocabulary. So that was really, really intense courses. And we've also had administrators go to that as well. So we do see the benefits because once letters training started to happen, we saw the uptick in phonics instruction, and then UFly came, and UFly is connected to the letters. So it all works together. So I'm really trying to align our needs in our professional development to really directly affect classroom and like building teacher capacity and also building student achievement up. And so we've been using a lot of grant funds for that. OGAP is expensive. I have to pay $650 a person to go there. And so, I had put out a survey, and I had 19 slots open, and I had to rewrite the grant and pull for more money because I had 45 people wanting to go. So, and I got every single one of them in, so that's great. But it's a lot, and I do think that it's coming back. The one thing that I think that we really need to focus on is the collaborative teams. That's our next direction, is to really have the teams not only by the grade level, but also to have them vertically so that they can see what's happening in the grade below and the grade above.
Thank you, Kim. I'm going to ask one more question.
Yeah.
Maybe another. The new program, just to piggyback off of what Jason asked, kind of looking closely and thinking very well about grades 5 to 6. I wanted to know, and you mentioned the Open Up resources that will be provided for the new curriculum in 5 and 6 next year. Is that program going to be monitored? Like, how are we going to be getting data to make sure that this is something that's working? And are teachers going to be able to provide feedback on that program as it's getting rolled out, and making sure that we're in a position where we're choosing programming very thoughtfully, that's well designed, that teachers enjoy teaching, that elevates instruction in the district?
So that's a great question. So another big thing that's happening in curriculum is from our strategic plan this year is to build common assessments. It's something that you had asked last year, it's our next step. So right now we have task force teams for all different grade levels and all subjects, and that's based of teachers and an admin, and we talk about common assessments. And so for every unit that's built, we have a common assessment now so that we can monitor we can monitor the learning in the classroom and the units compared to NEWA and SAS, so I can triangulate data. For the open up resources, that they have assessments right in there. And so the assessments will be done on a normal basis. And then the early release days, the teachers will actually take those assessments and they're going to talk about student learning through a protocol. So that they're holding each other accountable, and the principal is also involved in this. And so they will be taking people accountable as well. When they go into grade level meetings, they'll be asking questions, as well as I will be and my team. So the novel, we chose Open Up for two reasons. One is that it's by 2027, we need to have an evidence-based program for instruction. And I am going a little bit out of the rules because everyone went to this publisher's two programs that most districts are using. But I've been watching it as a national trend, and it's not giving the data that our clientele would be. So I have UFly as an evidence-based program, so that's part of it. I have Open Up, which is part of it. And for elementary, Erin Chouinard is doing a great job aligning all of the kindergarten through fourth grade units to the science of reading, complex text, and using the writing rope, which is another evidence-based thing for writing. And she's intertwining all of that with the programming that she's writing. So that we're moving in the right direction, and it's not going to be a financial strain because some of it is millions of dollars for the other programs.
Kind of piggyback off that comment, do we have like a long-term plan of, areas that you've identified in the overall curriculum program that need investment, and, when you would like to make those investments?
Yes, so I had to work on that this year a little bit. We have a rough 3-year plan, but it's really rough. And so we identified as a curriculum team some of the areas based off of our data, but we really wanted to see, I had to look at trends first this year. So this is more of our baseline because of the restructuring. So after this, we actually have a curriculum retreat on Thursday that we'll be looking at some of the goals and making some goals moving forward. And so we say, when we can evaluate. So 3 years is really the year that you can really evaluate any program, because the first year you have any new thing like this year, the teacher's confidence isn't the highest because it's new to them too, as in alignment. The students don't know it. So as you go, so then the second year you get more, and then the third year is really where you can tell if things are working or not in a 3-year cycle.
Also, just in terms of, of spending, of areas that that we need investment moving forward in future years, for new curriculum programs, new course materials, things like that.
Yep, so the hard thing is that the laws change quickly. So they give us until 2027 to have an evidence-based program. But then, like I said, publishers have these other two programs, but do we really want to use them? Our our data isn't really what these programs are really for. School districts that adopted them are, trying to supplement with things that we already have. And so what we have in our NEWA fluency assessment, our language skills are high, which identifies that our vocabulary is getting higher. So that's a huge plus, which is bigger than other schools that have the other two programs. So it's hard because, we just said Open Up. We looked at our results this year and we said, we have to do something for 5th through 8th grade. So then it was sort of, okay, how are we going to get the money to get the novels that we have to get? And so that's one area. For professional development, I have a 3-year plan, 3 to 5 year plan on how I want to roll out the district. And I'm very picky with what we do for professional development so that we can get everyone trained up and able to do that. So yes and no.
I had a quick question. Specifically, when we start looking at the middle, the intermediate and the middle school level, how do we collaborate or do we work with Pinkerton so that we know that, I mean, scores are scores, but there's also obviously competency, so that we know that the kids, whatever they're learning, regardless of what their scores in this, that they are prepared for what they are walking into Pinkerton, because they kind of set their own curriculum, they have their own thing. Do we work with Pinkerton to make sure that they're on the right track?
Yeah. So I meet with Pinkerton. I meet with all the sending town curriculum directors, and I meet with Pinkerton. And I have been working with, I will send over my curriculum maps from 7th and 8th grade, and I send those over to Pinkerton just so that they can see it, because they were all doing, they were asking questions, I was asking questions. I go to their sending town math meetings. I've observed classrooms over there. I've had teachers observe classrooms. We've talked about it. And so we kind of work backwards, and I look at our assessment data from Pinkerton, and then I say, okay, fractions, for example, that was tough for some of our kids. So I said, how can I put fractions all the way back down to kindergarten? So I think that our programming is more aligned now in math, particularly. Same thing with ELA, but we're really trying to align our programs vertically and make them deeper in their thoughts.
So when we have a dip like we saw as far as the growth of 5, 6, or the 7th, 8th, when they get up to Pinkerton, does Pinkerton adjust what they're going to be teaching or what their expectations are based on the scores that we give them?
No. But we try to align. I try to align. So we're working right now. Our curriculum sending towns. So all of the curriculum directors, we all meet together, and we were talking about 8th grade particularly, because that goes into Pinkerton. And so we are coming up with a cohort, math particularly. And so we're all going to work together. We're going to bring teachers in together, and we are going to align all of our curriculums for math to go into Pinkerton. But what I started with, I'm the one that has done it first, sort of. I've mapped it out, and so we're all kind of coming together. But I looked at what they expect from 9th grade in our assessments. And what they're giving our students and how our students perform. And then I am working backwards. And so then I started to align it backwards to what we need from kindergarten up.
I believe it's actually in the contract with Pinkerton that they have to meet with the administrators, the curriculum directors twice a year, and I think they have to meet with the middle school principals twice a year.
We meet, I've met with Derek at least 3 or 4 times, and then the actual, and then we actually have a really good group, and then we all were talking, and we said, we really should meet on our own. So then all of the sending towns, we meet as a group without Pinkerton.
We're going to stay here for a while, I guess. Sorry. Just want to go. I'd like to ask the question. What I'm curious about is over a longer term period of time, you've mentioned like UFly as being a very successful program at getting these foundational skills at the K-2 level. Are there ways for us as a district to demonstrate over time, when we find those programs that work well, that are evidence-based, teachers enjoy teaching, that get people excited to be in the classroom, is there a way to demonstrate over time, like there is a reduction in like remediation programming later on? We're looking, like, to me, everything is a pre-budget conversation, right? So when we're talking about curriculum, I'm thinking like, how do we get teachers excited to teach? What program are we choosing to do that? It's an investment for the district. So is there a way to show that with numbers instead of my feelings about it?
Yes, the more data over time, the more tier 1 instruction tightens up with programming, and that's tight vertically, the less focus block, the less kids for intervention, the less IEPs, it should start to drop. Yes.
Thank you, Kim. We'll talk in committee more sometime. Thank you.
Sounds like you're making an argument that you invest early to defray spending later, which is which is, I think, such a truism that we forget in all aspects of our life, that if you invest, you'd rather invest in schools than prisons, right? And that's
Yes.
at a very micro level, you'd rather invest in really high quality instruction early on and consistently for students so that you're not investing in remedial programs. I agree 100%. Now we need to tell that story with proof, evidence.
Yeah, people like to see the evidence, right?
Yeah.
And they like us to talk about it in this room, so.
I'll start tracking everything.
Yeah, excellent, thank you.
All right, did we have any further questions for these guys? All right, thank you. Yeah, that was a good
Thank you.
conversation.
Thanks, guys.
So, I think we're sticking with Joe for a presentation on the school start and end times.
Sure. I'm just going to sit right here because that's where I am. There's not much of a presentation. Just want to kind of give everybody an update. Some of you know we had been, as a district, talking about making some potential changes to school start times. And there are lots of factors at play. It's a very complicated issue, and we are not going to be making any changes to school start times for this upcoming year due to just the timeline. There's a lot of work to do. However, we began a conversation with the Derry Education Association, and there is, I think, great interest in continuing to talk as we come back in the fall. We'll also engage with our other union group, the AFSCME group, and just make sure that everybody is on board with kind of exploring this issue from multiple perspectives. I think the DEA has been incredibly thoughtful about this issue that cannot be reduced just to a spreadsheet and some clock time changes. There are lots of implications for these changes, but I feel optimistic, hopeful that we can work together with all of our employee groups and come forward maybe sometime in the future with potentially a proposed change. But right now, nothing to announce. I don't know if anybody has anything to add who was part of that transportation group.
I'm just wondering what the reasoning is for the possible changing of the school start times. What is it, a social emotional thing, or is it a logistic?
Yeah, I mean, lots of reasons. So there are social, emotional, and or developmental, physiological factors that contribute to the prime educational time for different groups of students based on age. So the best example that most of us know, if you've ever raised an adolescent, is sleep is incredibly important. Probably when you're infants and when you're in adolescence are the time that you need the most sleep in your entire life, Anthony. And us older people, adults, can probably get by okay with a little bit less sleep, but teenagers really can't. It's not good developmentally for them. So that's a factor. We've also considered some of the logistic challenges that have to do with transporting elementary, intermediate, middle, and high school students all in the same town. If you live in Derry, they almost all of them go through that traffic circle. So when they all go through that traffic circle at the same time of day, those of you who've ever tried to leave and go through there around 2:05 p.m., you've experienced what most of us know. So yeah, there's a logistic issue there. There's cost issues. There are instructional issues, scheduling challenges. I guess these are all kind of wrapped in. So there's not any one particular issue that's driving it. I think it's sort of a confluence of many factors.
All right, thanks for that update.
Thanks.
So next up is going to be Jane with some facilities projects that we're looking at for year-end funds.
Okay, last, I think that the Finance Committee is probably going to speak later, but we presented some estimated year-end financials last week to the Finance Committee. I've been working with Glenn Simons, our accountant, and Steve Schaefer, our finance manager, working for finishing up our year-end funds. We do still have a lot of accounts open, a lot of purchase orders open. We're waiting for a lot of invoices. This is the time of the year, but we're waiting for final bills from a variety of our vendors, transportation, a lot of our out-of-district placements, things like that. So, but I wanted to just kind of go over, in order to even talk about year-end funds, I want to talk about what are your end-of-year funds, because there are a few different terms, and I want to clarify what they are so that when I'm speaking about them if I do a presentation the next month, that you have some sense of what I'm talking about with respect to funds that have not been spent at the end of the year, or if we're going to retain funds. So this is really just a little explanation of terms. So when we talk about unreserved funds or unassigned funds, those are the money left over at the end of the fiscal year after all the obligations have been met and you don't have any restricted funds, committed funds are assigned. And as you know, when we have unreserved funds, we typically send that back to offset taxes. So when we talk about unreserved funds, when I get to the end of the fiscal year and I've met all my obligations, all of my bills are paid, and remaining funds, those would be called unreserved funds or unassigned because they're not assigned to anywhere. Retained funds, however, are funds, now we've not always been able to have retained funds. That's just been in the last few years where we've been able to retain funds and carry them over for one fiscal year. However, they cannot be retained or rolled over they're not cumulative. So anything that we retained last year, if we retained, just saying, 1.4 million, and we wanted to retain another 1.4 million, I don't have a rolling amount, so it's not going to be 2.8 and then another. So you can't continually retain those funds, and it doesn't go anywhere into a pool or a capital reserve account. And the most that you can retain at any given year is 5% of the district's net assessment. So the net assessment is what you are getting after you've received your base revenues, so it'd be your net district assessment, again, and it's not cumulative. You can use your retained funds as a revenue source, or you can use them for emergency expenditures. So you could use it if you had emergency maintenance projects, or you had over expenditures because you had a lot more, say, special education students that were outplaced of the district, and you needed to use your retained funds for that. So there are multiple different types of funds that we look at, unreserved and retained. We also, as you know, have our capital reserve funds that are held with the trustees of the trust fund of the school district. That's another type of a fund. I wanted to just show you a lot of what I'm going to be showing you because several of you are just new board members and maybe haven't seen the history of what we've had for unreserved funds or retained funds. So I just wanted to put together a visual chart showing the last 5 years of how much we retained and how much were unreserved. Remember, the unreserved in this case, which are the orange columns, those are the ones that were used to offset taxes. So we use that as a revenue source. It goes towards reducing the taxes when we're going to tax rate setting in October. So you can see what where we had. It's interesting if you look at the amounts that we had for unreserved and retained in 1920, 21, 22. They're larger amounts because of COVID. So during COVID, the district had a lot of federal funds coming in, ESSER funds and things like that. So a lot of fun. We had a lot of surplus. We weren't running transportation. We didn't have as many positions filled. We were receiving rebates from Primex. We were receiving rebates from Health Trust. That's why you have large surpluses in those given years. So I just wanted Last year in 23-24, you, as a board, voted to retain 1.4 million, and you returned over $1 million to taxpayers to offset taxes. Now, if we look at the projects that we had presented to the School Board Facilities Committee, we had a project, and I'm not sure if, Joe, if you want to review some of these. Joe's got a little bit of a better handle on the purpose and scope and the need for some of these projects. Actually, I'm going to have Joe go through these, but of all of these, all of them have quotes and proposals, with the exception of the project at Deep. That's just an estimate.
Okay, so we've outlined, I think, 5 projects here that we would like to engage in toward the end of this year, over this summer. The first one, pretty simple. This is to add a wall in a double-sized classroom at Hood. Many, many years ago, we had a program called Home Economics. Some of you might have gone to middle school or junior high when we had Home Economics. That program was converted to a similar program that had a couple different names. Sometimes it was called Life Skills, and most recently it was called Family and Consumer Science. The things that most people remember about that course, those courses were sewing and cooking, but there's also lots of other things that you learned in Home Economics, Life Skills, or Family and Consumer Science. This is pertinent because we converted this room many years ago from 2 rooms to 1 room when we installed really large modules, which were big stations that had built-in computer systems. I think it was the early 90s. Those have since aged out. We removed all the modules from the program. We haven't been using them for several years now. But that room still remains the way it was originally, the way that it was modified, where it is a double-sized classroom, really being used for one room of teaching. Next year, we are phasing out Family and Consumer Science and moving to a model that we call wellness, or health and wellness, which incorporates a large degree of the curriculum that was in the Family Consumer Science program. Our goal is to put a wall back up, dividing this giant room into 2 regular-sized classrooms to better kind of support the needs of the wellness program and make it an efficient use of space. The second project that's up here is regarding also Gilbert H. Hood, regarding vape detections. So some of you might have heard that people vape, and sometimes young people vape, even though it's incredibly unhealthy and illegal. And I'm not judging anybody, but I'm here to protect children. So one of the real challenges with managing vaping is it's really, really difficult to detect because of the way these devices have been designed. Some might say purposefully, but they have been designed in a manner that makes it really difficult to address when young people are using them. So there's great technology out there that helps us to track this down. And really, I want to focus that this is about detection and intervention. This isn't about punishment. Not to say that there aren't serious consequences for vaping. Our students in our schools know that there are serious consequences for vaping. It's a violation of our drug, tobacco, alcohol policies. However, the key thing when we're talking about, in this case, middle school students, is intervention before they get addicted and older. It's really hard to intervene when we can't directly confront students and really engage parents in this conversation, because it is just such a challenging thing to observe and track down. So we have experience working with this vendor and with this technology. We feel confident it's in place in a number of other schools. And we believe that it would be something that could extend our administrators and our teachers' ability to intervene in sort of healthy outcomes for our kids. So that's the vape I'm going to keep going, but I guess if you have questions, jump in, and I'll stop at any point. The third piece down, West Running Brook was designed in the 1990s and has a stage that is sort of attached to the gymnasium, if you've ever been in there. And there is a classroom on the stage. It's actually our music band classroom. There is a wall that separates the band classroom from the gymnasium, and I think it's safe to say that the students in physical education class are hearing a lot of band performances, and the band students are hearing a lot of physical education class. And it's really difficult to mitigate that noise bleed just because of the way the stage wall system was designed. We initially explored the idea of replacing that wall, but I know the last thing the board wants to talk about is replacing movable walls. We've had a lot of talk about that. We will continue to investigate it because this wall is 30 years old and certainly approaching, if not beyond, its expected life. But that's going to take a little bit of more time and effort, and we will explore different vendors that might be able to provide us greater sound proofing. In the meantime, one of the other big problems with the sound bleed has to do with the ceiling system. So if you're familiar with acoustic tiles, like there are in this room, there are lots of different sound ratings for acoustic tiles. When we build schools, we usually go with the least expensive acoustic tiles, and the effectiveness of keeping sound inside that room is really low. So this is a relatively low-cost approach to try to improve the quality of sound both in the band room and the amount of sound that bleeds across this environment. Fourth one on the list. So we have lots of children interested in coming to DEEP, and we have lots of need. And we expanded several years ago. We added a fourth classroom. We used to only have 3 classrooms at DEEP. We now have 4, and we are quickly approaching a need for a 5th classroom. There's lots of different factors related to this. The good news is that we have an adequate space that is currently occupied by the tech department, the computer technology department, that is attached to the DEEP hallway. And we believe for a relatively small cost, we can convert this, really what used to be the main office at Hood that became the tech office, we can convert this into a usable classroom space for the DEEP program. It involves adding a wall and a door, and right now, as Jane said, this is an early estimate. There are some other steps that need to be taken, but we think that this is a reasonable first step. The technology department would be moving out to another location to be determined, but we have a plan for that in place. The final project is the biggest of the projects. So we have West Running Brook locker rooms that, but the boys and the girls locker rooms have been largely unused, not completely unused, but largely unused for several years. Prior to, or I should just say, in the past, it was expected that every student went into the locker room and changed before they went to PE class. That expectation has changed both at the intermediate, middle, and high school level, I believe. So these locker rooms have become storage places where really like our daycare programs and other programs are storing gear down there, but they're actually really large spaces. Connected to this is we have some special education programs that are at West Running Brook, and they are currently utilizing spaces that aren't ideal for those students. Specifically, those students need access to, or it would be best, ideal if they had access to private bathrooms in the showering, the ability to shower, and washer and dryer hookups. Those are not things that you often see in classrooms, but we have all of that accessibility sort of baked into the locker room area. So we are looking to kind of what did we say? I was going to say renovate. Yeah, renovate these locker rooms to make them accessible, usable for some special programming at West Running Brook. It also frees up some classroom space for other programs at West. These spaces can be designed and will be designed to meet these kids' needs. Another need that I don't think I covered in my rambling was air conditioning. So there are subsets of these students that require air conditioning. We don't have air conditioning in the vast majority of our schools and classrooms. We have at times used those portable air conditioners where you see the hose going out the window, and that's a temporary makeshift workable solution at times. This would create an environment that is a little bit more fixed and meets the needs of these students. Do you want me to talk a little bit about the funding part? Okay. So the bottom two projects are both special education projects that we are seeking funds through IDEA funds, which are special education federal funds. There's a long, drawn-out process that we have been engaged in for months to secure these funds. We believe there is a very strong likelihood, but just watch my words here, a very strong likelihood that we will get approval to pay for the bottom two projects using federal special education funding. However, due to timelines, we are asking the board to allow us to use some of our unreserved funds to get these projects started with the hope that we will be reimbursed. If we do not start on, especially these two projects at the bottom, now they will not be accessible for the fall. The project, the locker room renovation at West Running Brook is really important because we just feel as though the programs in particular will be better served, these kids in this renovated area. And it's pretty extensive work. It's mostly demolition, which also can't really happen until Friday. Well, probably really till Tuesday because we have teachers in the building until Monday. But we have plans, we've had architectural drawings, we've had estimates. We feel pretty good about those quotes that we've gotten. And now we want to move forward with it. I've talked a lot at you. Jane, did I leave things out that you want to talk about? Okay. Questions?
All right, so it's my understanding of the law that the budget is broken out into function codes or purposes. And it's the administration's prerogative of how to spend those funds so long as they're being used for their intended purpose. So these projects being maintenance projects, it would be the administration's prerogative to move forward with these projects so long as there are sufficient unreserved funds within the function code for maintenance. So if there isn't, then you could ask the board to vote to transfer funds from another function code to the maintenance function code to cover the cost. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, so, and I think we've also discussed that, while it is the administration's prerogative to move forward with these projects so long as there are funds available, that if the board were to agree that they think one or more of these projects isn't something that we should move forward with, you would entertain that. Okay.
So before we do anything else, I just have one question on this. So on the slideshow here, you have 480,261 for the total, but on the executive summary, it's 447,580. And I added it up, and it should be the 480,261, but I'm just wondering why it's like 33,000 less on the summary.
I'll have to look into that. The summary may have been done after we got the revised numbers from Jobin.
Okay.
Not Jobin, I'm sorry, Morin.
I have a quick question. So to follow up with what Michael said about this being maintenance, but does the vape detection system count as maintenance, or is that a specialized project because it's really not something to maintain? It's a new system.
It would still be under maintenance and facilities, and it would be ongoing maintenance because you have a yearly fee to have those vape detectors, just like our camera system, just like the surveillance system. So it would be ongoing as part of our facilities project.
So the $20,782 is just to install, And then do we know how much it's going to cost yearly to run this? Is that something that needs to be presented to us, or?
One of us is going to pull their proposal.
So what I can say is in this first number here, sorry, I can't see when 2782 includes the first year of subscription. The vast majority of that is installation and devices. We can pull Jane and I are both racing to pull the actual subscription cost annually, but when we talked with the IT department, I know that we felt like it was not a significant annual cost.
But that falls under maintenance costs. Even just because we're installing something new. I was under the impression that maintenance was maintaining what we have. So if we were installing something new, that it would fall under a different purview, fall under a different category.
No, it would still be under the umbrella of maintenance.
Okay.
Maintenance just being an overall term for facilities and
The
anything
specific-
maintained by
The
maintenance.
state calls the specific category plant operations and maintenance.
And Jen, just to follow up, the annual subscription cost that we were quoted is about $1,600 a year.
I had a question on, so you said the last two projects, so the fifth classroom at Deep and then the locker room renovation at West Running Brook, we would be applying for federal funds to cover. So if we funded this from unreserved funds and then the grants were awarded, what would happen with those funds? Would they just go back into the general operating budget? Would they go back into unreserved funds? Would there have to be a reallocation of those funds?
Well, I'm not bringing the actual year-end funds or unreserved funds until the first, I think we're going to do it the first, we talked about it in finance, the first meeting in August and the second meeting. So right now, while we're applying for the projects to be approved through federal, there wouldn't be any invoices that would come in at least until July on the project. And by then, we should definitely know if we're substantially approved for the project. So as soon as we hear whether we're substantially approved, then yes, those funds would be included in your unreserved fund balance.
So would we need to use district funds to get these projects going, and then you would reimburse once you get the federal funds?
Yes.
Is there any risk that we wouldn't get the federal grant if we start paying for this project out of district funds?
Yeah, I mean, there is always a risk to that.
So
I think the idea is that we're looking for you to accept these as if we're paying for the whole 480 with the hope.
yeah, there would need
that-
to be the expectation that all of this could need to be funded out of district funds.
Correct.
If these grants do not come through.
Right, but so it seems like we'd be voting on something sort of hypothetical. Is this, it would be taken out of unreserved funds if we weren't to get the grants, the funding, correct? But we'd have to vote on what we're retaining on unreserved funds, and that's not happening until August?
The retained funds in the year-end fund balance are different. The retained funds come from the year-end fund balance, but the spending down of the year-end fund balance, can take place at any time. And really, we're not being asked to vote on anything right now. The administration can complete these projects so long as there is a sufficient balance in the maintenance account. The only thing that they need to ask us to vote on is if there isn't sufficient funds in the maintenance account, they would need to ask us to approve a transfer of funds to an account that has unreserved funds.
Understood. So then what are we voting on tonight?
We're not voting on anything tonight.
Great.
Is there a realistic understanding of when we may have an idea of when those IDEA funds may come through? You said July?
Well, Laura's still working. There's a lot of paperwork that is involved in applying for those. And so Laura's been working on that, and she has submitted so far everything that she has. She's had to submit the designs, the estimates, all of that. And write a narrative to why they would need that for a special program. So I know that a lot of it's been submitted. She's just waiting for a substantial approval.
And then, Michael, I'm not sure, just for my own clarification, I guess, are we risking getting approved by that grant if we go ahead and do this project? Are we somehow risking getting reimbursed? If we start the project without, like, official approval?
So it's not something that we're necessarily worried about because we are already submitted all the documentation. So it isn't like an unknown project to them right now. It's all in the system. We just haven't gotten an answer yet. I'm a little concerned about, I want to make sure we leave this meeting with a clear understanding too, because the last project on the list here is we've done a lot of legwork to get prepared, but the next step requires state fire marshal permitting that really shouldn't wait another 2 weeks. So I was hoping to leave here this meeting with a green light to move forward with this project, or a red light to say, nope, we're not doing this project. But it sounds like we're not going to be deliberating on that, because
We don't need to vote to approve the project so long as there's a sufficient balance of funds in the maintenance account.
Okay.
So we don't know if the funds are available.
The federal funds?
No. The funds for that function code. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So what Joe's asking, I thought that we were looking to move forward because of the timeline needed. If we're not going to actually vote on funds until August, it seems there's no way that this project is going to be complete. So that's, I'm just trying to get clarification on, if the project is set to happen this summer, what needs to happen in order for the project to happen this summer? Because a project like this should be happening or starting, or at least getting in the process next week. And we don't meet again for 2 weeks, and if we're not voting on any of the funds until say July or August, we are way behind on getting this project done for the 25-26 school year.
Well, we would need to know the balance of the maintenance function code, and if there is or is not sufficient funds, and if you would need us to vote on a transfer.
So right now, we're very close. We are right on the line of having the sufficient funds to not have to ask for a vote to transfer out of the 2,600. But if I do, I would certainly bring that to the next board meeting. Right now, we're just waiting for some utility bills and things like that, even though we've encumbered and waiting for last final bills out of that function code. So right now, it looks like we may be able to. We could either transfer at that meeting. There were 3 add-ons for those locker rooms of air conditioning, upgraded lighting, and I'm not sure I don't remember what the third thing was. And also, if we had to, we could also change some of the, even though we believe that the air conditioning needs to go in and we believe that the lighting probably needs to go in, we could look and modify parts of that project.
So just a question, sorry, Jenna, on the air conditioning, that's required for the type of classroom? Okay.
No, that's okay. I was just going to say, why don't we just look at this as a prioritize? If we're close to the amount of the maintenance funds and this is being presented as a block amount, why we can just give the green light for what has to start now. So like you were saying, the fire marshal, this is all stuff that we want to do and should really be done. So give the green light for the project at West Running Brook and the project at Deep, since those are the 2 biggest ones that are going to take the longest time. And then we can see where the funds are at the next meeting or July, and then give the green light for the other ones that aren't quite at the top of the priority, and then move funds if we need to.
Yeah, you should have a priority of these projects, and there's probably, you know that there's gonna be sufficient funds to at least do some of the projects. So, you can get moving on the projects that you know you have the funds for now, and then, in 2 weeks, once you have a better picture of how much all of these things are gonna cost and what the balance of the 2600 function code looks like, you could ask the board to vote on a transfer if necessary.
Exactly, yes. Thank you, Michael.
All right, is the board comfortable with the administration moving forward with all 5 of these projects, just as a general concept? Nope, you don't have to vote. All right, we will move on then. So Jane, it'll still be you with your business administrator's update.
Yes, and I just want to follow back on Karen. The number on the, in the executive summary should have been the same number as on the unreserved.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, it just hadn't been carried over. Which one am I on? Are we on? Did you want me to do the business administrator update now?
Oh, yep.
Okay,
You're up.
In your packet, we provided the estimated, the draft schedule of the bond projects that Mark Jobin worked on, and I reviewed, once he sent me the draft, I worked on him with it, and I think we have a really good draft and a plan. I also want, so you can see that all the projects are listed by school and project. I also wanted to mention that we met last week with, last Tuesday with ARM, with Brian Toner, Mark Jobin, Jeremy, Rob Spirito, to have a pre-construction meeting on the roof projects for Grinnell and Gilbert H. Hood. Yesterday, we had a meeting with Gale Associates, with Mark Jobin and Jeremy and Rob, to, again, talk about, that meeting was to talk about actually the South Range project, and they're going to be doing a walkthrough of the building next week. They are going to be starting on the roofs at Grinnell and Gilbert H. Hood. They'll be working over the weekend, this weekend, and then they'll be starting to deliver materials and starting on their project next week. And the Gale project over at West Running Brook for the banding, they also will be starting next week, delivering materials. So we are on schedule with all of the work, all the bonds. We expect that the roof at Hood and the roof at Grinnell will be completed this summer, and as well as the banding at West Running Brook. And again, we're starting on South Range's exterior plan and doing the walkthrough next week. Does anybody have any questions on the plan?
No question, Jane. I just wanted to thank you for this. I know we've kind of been asking for it for a bit, and it's good to finally see everything mapped out. And obviously, I think we all need to have reasonable expectations that things can and do change, and projects may need to be pushed out a bit or pulled in, or things pivot based on contractor availability, material supplies, labor, et cetera. But it's nice to at least see a plan in how the project's going to be completed. So thanks.
You're welcome. And you just happened to mention the supplies and when we'd be able to get them in. When we talked yesterday in our meeting with Alan and Jane from Gale and Mark and Jeremy, we talked about the need to start having the making sure that the bid for next fall or winter, to make sure, because there is going to be a significant lead time to get those in to start that project next summer. So, and we'll also be working on the HVAC, roofing. That takes a lot of coordination and design. So I'm really pleased that Gail is working on all of that right now. And Mark Jobin has been included in all of these meetings. And once we start getting going with the actual projects and they're out doing the roof and West Running Brook in the next week or so. He'll be out on site on those projects, and he'll be coming to the board meeting to give you updates.
I assume Mark will be managing this from the outside in. Who on the district side, are you directly kind of overseeing Mark and the progress, or how's that working from an administration standpoint?
So as far as Mark and I have been doing direct communication, but Jeremy is involved in every part of it. So Jeremy's in every meeting. We collaborate and talk about any conversations we may have had with Mark or any of the vendors, but typically it's Jeremy, Rob, and I are in on every meeting, and Mark is included as well. So there's 3 of us on our end that always know what's going on in the projects. We're included on every email, as is Mark Jobin. So on Mark's side, Jeremy and I are his direct contact, and not overseeing him, but making sure that he's doing what the district had hired him to do.
Holding him accountable.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
Thank you.
And I can say I've been very impressed. He's asked a lot of questions. He contributes a lot of input and recommendations on designs and products and materials in the last 2 meetings that we've had with him. So we're very pleased with him so far.
Yeah, looking forward to hearing from him in the future.
And I know that
for sure.
Brian Toner from ARM, as well as I'm sure Tim Archer, the owner, will be out monitoring both of the roofing projects at Grinnell and Hood as well.
Is that it? Okay. All right. Anybody else have any additional questions for Jane? All right. Well, thank you for getting us the project schedule. I think it's nice for everybody to be able to see that things are happening and, knowing when we can expect all of these projects to be completed. So thank you for that. All right. The next agenda item will be Austin, and you already kind of did this to announce our 2025-26 Pinkerton Student School Board member.
Yeah, it made the most sense right after Anthony gave his little talk there. And congratulations, you're a couple of days away from being a senior. That's huge. And I'm sure you're starting to think about your plans for what happens at this time next year. Hopefully you can give this board and the admin an update on what your future is going to look like moving forward, and I'm sure you're going to do great things. So, congratulations.
I would echo those congratulations, and knowing you as we have the last year or so, Anthony, I'm assuming we'll be seeing you here all summer? All right, well, we'll see. If you need to miss a meeting here or there, to enjoy your summer, don't worry about it.
Enjoy your childhood.
All right, Austin, you can continue with your update.
Okay. There are only a couple of days left in the 2024-25 school year, and a couple of more for our teachers, which means that all our students, staff members, families, and school board members will soon depart to enjoy the wonderful vacation days of summer. Therefore, I want to take this time to mention my thanks to so many of you. At this moment, I have a number of emotions running through me, including gratitude, nostalgia, pride, a deep sense of appreciation for this journey we have all shared together over my 21 years of service to the Derry Cooperative School District. I want to take this moment while there are still a few days left in this, my final school year, to express those. It took me a long time. I started school back in the 60s, and I'm just finally getting out. Anyways, to express those feelings and offer my heartfelt thanks to the many different members of our school board, not just the members present here, but those in the past. Thank you, and I am going to use this term on purpose. Thank you for your willingness to volunteer your time for the benefit of our district. Together, we have moved this district forward, and you have put forth a great deal of time and effort in order to make positive changes while stressing fiscal responsibility. Thank you for your guidance, your collaboration, and your steadfast commitment to doing what is best for students, staff, families, and the Derry community. To our families, thank you for entrusting us with the welfare of your children. Through your volunteer efforts as members of our PTAs and our PTSAs, or individually, you have helped to enhance the education of our students with your advocacy, by partnering with us, and most importantly, by your unending support. Education is a shared responsibility, and your role in that partnership has been invaluable and will remain so. My entire career here in Derry has been as an administrator, and I have been privileged to be mentored by, to work alongside as colleagues, and to supervise an exceptional team of dedicated, professional, and trustworthy leaders. People who have been able to balance their vision with compassion, strategy with humanity, and work ethic with having fun. All of this to support staff members and make student achievement the first and foremost priority. Your commitment to excellence has moved this district forward, and your leadership has inspired me every step of the way. To our dedicated staff, which I have always emphasized to include everyone, teachers, assistants, secretaries, related service providers, custodians, substitutes, nurses, food service workers, maintenance professionals, and all of the other people in our organization who support the teaching and learning process. Thank you for showing up every day with purpose and with passion to help shape the lives of countless students, along with our contracted workers, consultants, and our wonderful bus drivers. You are all the unsung heroes who make it possible every day, day to day, and year to year. Finally, and most importantly, our children, your children, our students, who are the reason that all the rest of us are here. You're speaking to the students now. Your curiosity, resilience, work ethic, humor, persistence, and your dreams have always been the heartbeat of this district. Watching you grow, make connections, continually learning, and develop into leaders on your own account has been one of the greatest joys of my career. Visiting you and our staff in the buildings has been the best part of my job as your superintendent. Please remember that you can always better yourself through learning from your successes, and even more importantly, from your failures and your mistakes. You have limitless potential. There is power in your voice, and as long as you never give up, you will succeed in the end. In a few weeks, I will retire as superintendent here in Derry after an education career that began back in 1980. As I retire, I do so with full confidence in the future of the Derry Cooperative School District. The seeds we have planted together will continue to grow. While I may no longer be superintendent, I will always be an advocate for public education and a champion for this community. As a matter of fact, I've decided to continue my service to Derry in my role as a member of the group of caring, dedicated, and extremely fun individuals in the Derry Village Rotary Club. So you may see me from time to time at the Derry Holiday Parade, the Veterans Dinner, cleaning up the Derry Rail Trail, or delivering bags of food, maybe even, to the schools for 68 hours of hunger. I will miss you all, but even if we do not meet again, I will remember you all as well. Thank you for the memories, the lessons, the challenges, and the triumphs. I will remember them and carry them with me always. Thank you.
Thank you, Austin. You know you got one more meeting left, right? You're not done with us yet.
This is true.
All right. So we'll move on to committee reports. We had a couple of committees meet over the last 2 weeks. The Curriculum and Assessment Committee met, and some of that was covered in Kim's presentation, but did the committee have any updates from that meeting other than that?
No, I think we covered all of that. I mean, Kim and Joe also provided that presentation to the committee when we met last week. We did talk some, and we talked earlier specifically about that programming in grades 5 and 6 and looking closely. Kim and Joe had answered some of my questions regarding the programming that we're going to be starting to use in 5 and 6. I think, as I mentioned earlier, just to reiterate that we're getting teacher feedback on that programming as it rolls out. Again, with the thought in mind that teachers are excited to use these programs, that they're watching kids learn effectively in the classroom, that we're seeing that in assessment data, that we're also seeing it in other areas of student achievement that we can't measure so easily. So that would just be the message that I have as a board member there.
All right, thank you, Jen. The Finance Committee also met. I can give an update on that meeting. So the bulk of that discussion was around the summer maintenance projects, which we've already discussed in detail. But we did also discuss the unreserved funds as we approach the year end and the expectations around retained funds. So Jane, I believe that we discussed that you would bring an update on the unreserved fund balance to the first meeting in August with the expectation that you'll have a recommendation and we'll vote on retaining funds at that second August meeting.
Yes, that's what I'd like to do, yep.
All right, and I mean, if I could, just to go over exactly what we're talking about when we're talking about unreserved funds and retained funds. So I know, we have some new board members, and this is one of the more confusing topics that I feel like we deal with. So, and you can correct me if I'm wrong at any point here, Jane, but basically at the end of the year, the remaining unreserved funds and the remaining funds that the board had retained from the prior year kind of go into one pot and become the base of your next year's budget. So that's a revenue source, and you wouldn't have to raise that amount through new taxation. And so what the board can do is vote to retain funds from that pot, so it gets set aside and it doesn't count as a revenue source towards the next year's budget. The caveat of the retained funds being that they can only be used for emergency expenditures or over expenditures, and the board would need to hold a public hearing before we could expend any funds out of the retained funds. So, that's a little basic explanation of what all that means once we go into having to make decisions on that over the next couple of months. All right, we will move on to FYIs. So we had the June enrollment report in the board packet. Did anyone have any questions on that? No? All right, I will give an update on the Fiscal Advisory Committee openings. So a little background, the policy sets the Fiscal Advisory Committee at 9 members and 2 alternates, and it requires the board to make appointments on or before June 30th. So we will vote on those appointments at the next meeting on June 24th. We came into the year with 7 incumbent members on the committee, and I think we received a late application today, so I think we've received 4 applications. So that puts us at the 11, the 7 the 9 members and 2 alternates. So the application period is essentially closed, but we will vote to nominate those members at the next meeting. There's been a few events around the district since we last met. So the spring concert season wrapped up. EDMES had their concert on the 30th. I stopped by. I think, Jen, you were there as well. So, one last congratulations to all of our music students and our music educators throughout the district for an impressive performance season. We were also invited to EDMES's Patriotic Assembly on the 5th that their first grade puts on. So I made it to the morning performance during school hours. I saw Austin there. I believe a few more of you guys were able to make it in the evening for the public performance. But yeah, it's a long-standing event that, the first graders at EDMES, I think has it always been first grade? Yeah. And, they learn about, the United States, they learn patriotic songs, and they do, a great performance for their fellow students during the day and then for their families at night. So it's a great event to, see those excited first graders up there singing. I know, Jen, you went at night, right?
Yes, I went at night. Actually, I saw Brenda there. It was very, very hot that night, and I was very excited because my daughter Gracie was in first grade, and she got to be in her first Patriotic Assembly, so that was good.
So we also had Next Charter School had held their graduation ceremony. That was also on the 5th. I saw a few other board members in attendance at that. If you've never been to a Next graduation, it's a really unique event. They personalize it to each student. There are heartfelt speeches from the staff, for each student in the graduating class. So, it's really something to see the pride in these students as they receive their diplomas, and, they're addressed by the teachers that they've had over the years. So I would just say congratulations to all the Next graduates, and that would include Elsie Kyle, who's been our student school board representative from Next over the past year. Before we move on, I did want to also just give one acknowledgement that the last day of school is coming up on Thursday, and to thank everyone throughout Derry, for their patience, support, and commitment to make sure that this year was a great one for all of our students. It was a year of major changes. We had students attending new schools, teachers and staff working at new schools, and just changing the way that we do things in a lot of ways. So, there have been a lot of successes that, are worth bragging about, and, I hope we'll continue to, speak to the good things that are going on in this district. And, there have been unanticipated challenges, but I think everyone throughout the district is rising to those challenges, and soon, what's been a new normal this year won't be new or different anymore. It'll just be normal. So thank you again to everyone for everything this year. Did anyone else have any updates?
Mr. Chair, I just wanted to congratulate the 8th graders at Gilbert H. Hood. They graduate, have promotion day tomorrow. Tonight they had their Hollywood-themed red carpet dance over at the school. So it looked like a great event setting up before they went in through, and thank everybody from that community, building administrators, teachers, staff, PTSA, all the parents, all the families, excited for these kids to go on to the next steps, Pinkerton High School, wherever they're going to go. So best of luck to everybody, and been a great year, so thanks.
And I just wanted to say happy Pride Month to everybody, and thank all of our local businesses and neighbors who support our community and have welcoming and safe spaces for everyone in our community. And this year marks 10 years of marriage equality, so it's a big one. So happy Pride, everyone.
I would like to give a shout out to East Derry's Miss LaCroix's class. I had the pleasure to go on a trip to Japan today, and it was great. I learned that Japan has 3 languages. Giant salamanders can be 5 feet long. Sumo wrestlers have to be 6 feet tall and 300 pounds. And they really like to eat their rice with every meal. So it was a nice educational experience. I love traditions. Apparently she's been doing this in her classes, and now she's new to East Derry, so she's brought it with her. She has a long-standing relationship with a person from Japan, so they got to do Skype calls. They got to pick their topic, and they set it up around the room, and they made dioramas. They had the posters on the back, and they were really engaged. It's nice to see our students learn things about other cultures, themselves in the language, learn what school was like, learn what the food was like. I love seeing traditions like this, so it'll be nice to see that she does this every year, and she gets to pool her resources and just continuously build on it. So it was a great presentation, and I hope they enjoyed it as much as I did.
Yeah, Ms. LaCroix first invited us to this event last year when she was at Derry Village. And, it's interesting to note that she invited us because she saw Brenda and I speaking at a meeting about an event that we had attended at another school. And she thought, wouldn't that be a great idea to invite the board and come and see this? So, any teachers out there that are watching, and I know you are, if you have any, cool things that are going on at your school or in your classroom and you want to invite us to come see it, certainly reach out to the superintendent, whoever that may be. All right. If no one has any further updates, our upcoming meeting schedule, the next meeting of the board will be on Tuesday, June 24th, 6:30 p.m. here at the Municipal Center, and that one will be Austin's last meeting before he heads off into the sunset. Following that, we'll have our first meeting with Mr. Flynn on Tuesday, July 22nd at 6:30 p.m., also here at the Municipal Center. So that should wrap up tonight's meeting. At this time, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
First by Jen, second by Jason. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes 6-0. Good night, everybody.